show 1 of 2 complete. Show 1 of 2 quite successful. Don't get me wrong, I'm not about to retire to my own private island in the wherever, in the Seychelles, but pretty darn good. And some of the products that went surprised me. The catch-all trays that I made in a previous video, linked down below, and coasters. Coasters, would you believe? So coasters for me are something that I make from leftover bits that I just can't use for anything else. But now I really need to make some more because we've run out and they really seem to attract people. So in this vid, I'm going to make 2 different coasters, or rather, I'm going to approach making coasters in 2 different ways. I've got this old scrag end piece that's been hanging around out the back for ages. I've really got no idea what it is. It looks a little Iroko-ish, but I'm not really sure. Anyway, it's quite motted, bolted, stained. So it's going to make quite interesting coasters, I think. I'm going to use a piece of maple and a piece of utility to hopefully create the contrast that I'm thinking of with this approach to making coasters. I do have a piece of walnut that would give me a greater contrast, but I'm loath to use it on coasters, so I'm going to go with the utility and cross my fingers. I'd really love to have access to some of the more exotic species that you see some of the other lucky woodworkers on YouTube have got. So first job, I'm going to cut down the maple into a 35mm square. So what I want to do is a light coloured wood in the bottom right hand corner, or the bottom corner of the coaster, and then I'm going to surround that with a slightly darker, and then surround that on the edge with a slightly darker, L-shaped on both the previous pieces mentioned. So first up is to cut the maple, the lightest colour that I've got, into 35mm square, and then I'll rip down some of what I believe is Iroko into, again, 30mm, 35mm pieces to wrap around the maple. I think that makes sense. So as before, I'm going to pop this one out the clamps, plane that joint at the bottom to make sure it's nice and flat. And then I'm going to trim it down on the table saw and glue on the piece of utility. So I've popped my 2 blanks out of the clamps. I've planed my offcut piece top and bottom, and my attempt at some kind of modern design with contrasting timbers in the loosest sense of the word. I've planed all round and I've got it to the final dimensions that I want it. So now it's time to cut. I'm going to start with the offcut piece on the bandsaw. So I've got my bandsaw set to about a 10mm cut. My blank is approximately 33-34mm, so I'm targeting about 9mm for a finished coaster width. The downside of this approach is obviously having to run the entire length through the bandsaw, which is one of the slowest machines to cut with in the workshop. But not only is it the perfect tool for the job, it's also got the minimum amount of blade kerf, so minimum amount of wastage generated. I'm using my 3D printed featherboard, which is absolutely superb and cost me about £1.26, including bolts and star knobs on top, chuffed to bits with it. I'll see if I can find the files and put a link to them for you if you want to print one yourself. You're dead right. I should have run them down on the table saw before I cut them. That would have been 2 cuts instead of 6 cuts. But I forgot. One of the major benefits of cutting coasters this way is that you get a much longer piece that you can sand. So the sanding is much easier, much quicker, much preferred. That's a bit of sanding with some 180 grit and I'm ready to cut. So first cut to get a nice clean straight edge on the end. Then I'll set the stop block up at 100mm to match the width, and then rinse, lather, repeat. Now to put the bevels on all the edges of the coasters. I've been using a 45-degree bit in the router table for ages to do that very job, but I find that, especially when I do this next set of coasters with the grain running the other way that I get an awful lot of breakout. So I've moved over to using this system, which is this real rudimentary jig. It's literally just some MDF cut at 45 degree with a tiny little fence on the side to help me try and keep them square. The issue with this one is if you press down in an uneven fashion, then you're going to very easily set your bevel way off and get it running like a wedge. The final step with these before applying finish is a bit of 180 grit on the bottom of my RTS 400 with an extra sponge pad on the bottom so that I can take off the sharp edge and almost get to a rounded edge coaster. Almost, not quite, but nearly, kind of. And now on to the other blank. This time I'm going to be using the table saw, so I'm going to get end grain coasters. So once again, I'm going to cut myself a nice clean edge, then I'm going to set the depth. And to set the depth, I'm going to use a very old magnetic featherboard guide stop thing. I've had it for I don't know how long. I've tried to find some more online, but they don't appear to be manufactured anymore. In fact, I can no longer find the company that made them. The ultimate coaster. Well, I got to admit, I thought I was going to be pulling a late one, possibly an all-nighter tonight to get this finished, because now that that's done, I've got to go and load the van up because we leave to drive to the showground tomorrow morning at the time of recording this video. So there's no time left. I may be pulling a late one to get the editing done for this so that I can get the video out to you on Friday, day after tomorrow. But I'll do my best. No promises, mind. Anyway, back to the question, end grain or edge grain? For me, definitely end grain. Gives the coaster far more character. I find edge grain a little on the boring side, but it's down to personal preference. People, have a look, take your pick, but whatever you do, buy some and move on, because I'm neck deep in coasters now. So hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you loved it, why not subscribe? And if you think I'm as wonderful as I do, then why not head over to my Patreon site and help support this amazing channel. Thank you very much for watching and hope to see you next time. Ta-ra.